All right, PPPR. It's Pete Prisco's Power Rankings Day here on HQ. I'm Chris Hassel. Pete, we've had the most games through 4 weeks decided by 3 points or fewer, and it's really not even close. A really exciting start to this season, and it seems like a lot of parity right now in the league.
This is the week where I say it every year. Is anybody any damn good?
You said that last week.
I'm going to say it this week because it's been a month. Is anybody that good? Or really, I mean, if you can look at this and say, okay, the Eagles, they were trailing 14-0 at home.
Yeah.
I mean, if Trevor Lawrence...
Chiefs fans are saying, hey, look what we did against Tom Brady and the Bucs.
And look what they did the week before against the Colts, who aren't a very good team. I mean, you can go round and round. Right now, we can't sit here and say anybody is definitively a really good team. What we can say is the Eagles are the best team right now.
They're the only undefeated team going into Week 5 in the NFL, and they remain on top of Pete Prisco's power rankings. Number 1, the Dolphins were number 2 last week, and they took their first loss of the season. They dropped a few spots to 5th. Several teams into the top 10, including the Vikings, Cowboys, and 49ers. Into the teens, where we find several teams who fell out of the top 10, Ravens, Jags, Chargers. The Giants up into the 16th spot with that 3-1 start. They're up 7. Saints started the season in 6th. They have fallen all the way to 24. And same number 32 team as the Texans. They are now the only team without a win this season, but they do have a tie, and they are feisty. They got that fire in the belly. All right, so let's break down Pete Prisco's power rankings. We've got Pete. We also have Bryant McFadden, who is decked out in his podcast gear, all things covered. More on that a little bit later. Let's start with the Eagles, fellas. Did they show you a little something more this week in that they fell behind early against a hot team and were able to come back?
That's what good teams do. Good teams fall behind, but they know how to get out from underneath it. That's a sign they're a good team. But I will say this, Trevor Lawrence missed a shot down the field, wide open, to Jamal Agnew. He catches that. They're up 21-0. That might be a different game. As it is, it wasn't, and they ran the ball and ran the ball and ran the ball. That's the toughest thing about the Philadelphia Eagles right now. The Jacksonville Jaguars went into that game number 1 in the league in run defense. They got run on for over 200 yards. It's not unlike what happened to the Saints last year when they were the number 1 run defense in the league and they ran for over 200 yards. They're hard to prepare for, even in the sloppy conditions that they played in that day. That's a tough team to prepare for offensively, if you're a defense, because their offense is so good right now.
Yeah, Pete, you talked about the conditions, right? Spotting a team like Jacksonville, who I believe they're a good team, as you mentioned, that's hard to come from behind, and especially with those conditions. It was rainy, couldn't really throw the ball like that, but guess what they did? They went and played backyard football. We're just going to run it down the teeth of your defense, and Jacksonville had no answer. And then when you talk about the offense, what about Philly's defense? I mean, granted, Trevor Lawrence had some tough turnovers, but yet and still, Philly was able to create those turnovers to give their offense extra possessions. And most of those turnovers they created was definitely in the red zone for their offense. So you look at how they were able to win that ball game last Sunday, the conditions, spotting a good team, 14 points. Yes, no doubt they're the best team in the National Football League right now. And they also have one of the hottest quarterbacks in the league as well, in Jalen Hurts.
At the Cardinals on Sunday are the Philadelphia Eagles. That'll be an interesting matchup. Jalen Hurts and Kyler Murray, who's keeping the Cardinals afloat.
Particularly because they play the Cowboys the next week. Will they be caught looking ahead? That's
right.
A tough turnaround.
Right. Cowboys keeping pace with the Eagles in that division despite not having Dak. Let's move on to 2 and 3, where we find the 2 AFC Goliaths. Bills, Chiefs, 2 and 3 respectively. How do you separate the two right now?
Well, I think both of them are good offensively. I'm a little concerned about the injuries at Buffalo. And that's the only, they're still going to get guys back, and they're going to be a better team at the end of the year than they are right now. We saw Jordan Poyer get back, and he played well last week, had the big interception. That was a sign of a really good team. What they did at Baltimore. You fell behind by 17, and you come from behind and you do that. In those kind of conditions with guys not on the field because there's so many injuries, that's a sign of a really good team and a deep team. That's the thing about Buffalo. They're deep. They fill in. They've had a lot of guys go down so far, and they filled in and keep on going. So I really believe that that's the team. I picked them to win the Super Bowl. I still think they're going to get there.
J-Mac?
Yeah, when you look at Buffalo, when you look at Kansas City, both teams had impressive wins. But I agree with Pete. I think Buffalo, they had the most impressive win based on getting down in the ball game, playing against a hot offense in Lamar Jackson, a team that's averaging offensively over 30 points per ball game, and their defense playing with not a full cast of starters, still being able to make plays to give Josh Allen an opportunity to put points on the scoreboard. So seeing what they were able to do based on the offense they were going against, getting down early in that ball game by 17 points and still finding a way to win was very, very impressive. Granted, I'm not taking anything away from what Kansas City did. They had an impressive win as well based on what they did against Tampa, against that defense who was only allowing around 9 points per ball game. So they blew me away with their style and how they won. But I think Buffalo deserves that number 2 spot still, seeing what they had to endure to be able to come out and prevail with a big-time win. And like Pete said, eventually, when they get healthy, man, I mean, this is a team that I didn't know they had the depth that they currently have, that what they've shown us on the defensive side, but they have depth. But when they get fully healthy, man, look out. They would definitely be fighting for that number 1 spot in the National Football League.
We'll find out a lot more a week from Sunday when these two teams play each other in Kansas City. Let's move on to the Dolphins, who were 2 last week. They lose on Thursday Night Football. Tua gets knocked out again. Is this going to be an issue moving forward with Tua suffering 2 head injuries like that within a span of just a few days?
It's hard to say, and BMAC would know this better than me because he's played the game and probably had several concussions, but the second concussion is usually a lot tougher than the first one. It's a signal that there's a problem there, and it could be something that's ongoing. So, yeah, I would definitely think this could be a problem for the Miami Dolphins. Teddy Bridgewater's a nice backup quarterback. That's what he is. He can come in, he can play 2-3 games, he can win 2-3 games, but I don't think over the course of the season you want to play more than that with Teddy Bridgewater if you're going to be a true contender down the road. So it's concerning for the Miami Dolphins not to have Tua. And you know me, I've been a Tua critic, but I'm going to give him his props. He had played really good football before all this started happening, and it's kind of disappointing not to be able to see where he could have taken his game this year and where this team could have gone. But Teddy Bridgewater for a couple games, he's fine. But I don't think that's good for the long term for this Miami Dolphins team.
And for Miami, hopefully it's only a couple of ball games. I think they will treat Tua Tagovailoa in a week-by-week case, right? Just seeing exactly how he is week by week. I didn't expect to see him play this weekend against the Jets. I don't know what the status will be next week, but who knows what we will see from Tua Tagovailoa long-term in the season. So now, as Pete mentioned, you have Teddy Bridgewater, a guy who has started a lot of ball in the National Football League. He's done it both ways, as a backup, as a starter. I think we will see a more efficient offense, knowing that he will be the starting quarterback, so he gets a full week of prep as the number 1 guy. The concern that I have with the Miami Dolphins, Pete, is their defense. Their defense. I really thought this defense would be a team that would be opportunistic on that side of the football, sacking quarterbacks, putting pressure, creating turnovers. We saw a glimpse of that in week 1, but since then, we've been seeing some inconsistent play. So understanding and knowing not knowing the status of their starting quarterback, one would think their defense would play much better than what they've displayed so far. And I think they need to do that to be able to be in your top 10 moving forward throughout the season in regards to the power rankings.
Hey, B-Mac, I got to ask you, did you ever have a concussion one week and have one maybe 1 or 2 weeks later? And if so, what was the difficulty trying to come back from the second one?
No question. I've had like 2 of them that was kind of in a back-to-back sequence. The most concerning and alarming thing is, for me, I played corner. So, of course, I had to tackle people. I was very, very hesitant in tackling. So I would assume as a quarterback, especially when you endure the type of hits that Tua endured over the last 2 ball games, he might be a bit hesitant in the pocket. Because me personally, when I had the first concussion, and this was years back, when you just get some smelling salt and you jump right back on the football field and play. Right. And then I remember I endured another one maybe a week later. I was so hesitant into committing to tackling people, and people saw it on film. And it just took a while for me to get over that hurdle of just going in there and just letting it go and tackling like I'm supposed to. So I would think when Tua gets back in the lineup, that pocket presence for him might be a little shaky, understanding and knowing the last time he was in a pocket, he got severely slammed to the turf.
See, I think that's what's wrong with me. All those years when I played, we had concussions. They didn't even give you smelling salts. They just get up and go back in and play.
They hit you on the head, say, get
Come on,
back in
tough
there.
it out. And that's what's the problem with me, Ron.
So it's Teddy Bridgewater this week against the Jets. The good news that Miami has is the schedule's favorable. After that Minnesota game the following week, Pittsburgh, Detroit, Chicago, Cleveland, Houston. So all those winnable games. Yeah. Maybe
but B-Mac's right. They got to tighten up on defense, too.
Well, no question about it. So one of those games they have coming up is against the Vikings. That's the toughest game they have coming up. Minnesota is 8th in your rankings. The Cowboys come in 9th. You've got the team with the better offense ranked ahead of the team with the much better defense.
And that's what it is right now. I mean, that's the comparison. You have one team that has a really good offense. You have one team that has a really good defense. And that Dallas defense is playing great football. They get after the quarterback. They attack. They have a ton of pass rushers. They have guys who get up the field. But I think at times you can run on them a little bit. I think that'll be a problem for them if they don't tighten that up a bit. But this is one of those situations where the Vikings, if they can just get the defense to play better. And here's the problem with Vikings. They have a new system, and guys are adapting to the new system. And B-Mac knows this. His cousin's involved in it. It's a different system. A guy like Harrison Smith is playing deep safety now instead of being a guy up near the line of scrimmage. And they seem to be having a tough time adjusting to it. I think in a couple games or a game or two, they'll be fine on that side of the ball. They have enough talent there to be a good defense.
Yeah, that's the thing. They have talent. I mean, the cupboard is not bare there in Minnesota on the defensive side. I think it's just a matter of time to understand this new concept. And like you said, they're playing more of a softer coverage in the back end. We're not seeing extra hats around the football like we've seen in years past from a Minnesota Vikings defense. And because of that, we're seeing some holes, to say the least. But I think through time, they could be a more consistent unit, understanding and knowing the new scheme that they're a part of. And I would love to see more from Dalvin Cook as well. I know he was nursing a shoulder injury, but we know what type of talent he is in the backfield. I would love to see them get him more involved because we know they have the pass catchers to make life easy for Kirk Cousins. But find a way to get number 4. He has number 4, right? He changed his number to number 4. Yeah, number 4, the football, because when he's rolling, that offense could be potentially unstoppable. And let's transition to the Dallas Cowboys. Listen, they might be one of the more impressive 3-1 teams in the National Football League. The way they've been able to win ball games, like you said, it's been from on the back of their defense. But let's give Cooper Rush some praise. He's done everything you would want him to do. He's kept them in reach of winning ball games. He hasn't been turnover prone, and he's just utilizing the players that are surrounding him. And it seems to be the morale of this team has really been increased based on what Cooper Rush has done. They have rallied around Cooper Rush. So I'm really impressed with the Dallas Cowboys and seeing what they've been able to do, not having their franchise quarterback in the lineup.
Couple things on these two teams, rookie-wise. The left tackle, Tyler Smith, is playing outstanding football.
Yes, sir.
I mean, everybody thought he would play guard. He moved outside. He was a tackle in college. I really liked him coming out of Tulsa. I think he's going to be a heck of a tackle for them for the long term. And then the Vikings need to get Bryant Asamoah on the field. That's one thing that shows up is the speed at linebacker. Get my guy on the field. Let him play. Let him go sideline to sideline. I think he'll amp up that defense a little bit.
Vikings and Cowboys will play each other the weekend before Thanksgiving this year. Another team back into the top 10, the San Francisco 49ers. They are the highest-ranked team in that NFC West division where everybody is 2-2. Did they prove last night to you, Pete, that they're the team to beat this year?
Well, I think their defense is really good. I mean, they dominated the Rams, threw them around. The Rams have issues on the offensive line. But not only that, Kyle Shanahan owns Sean McVay. He's 7-0 against them in the regular season. He lost that game last year in the playoffs, the big one, so give McVay credit. But for whatever reason, they seem to be one tick ahead of them when it comes to game planning, and that defense is really, really good. Jimmy Garoppolo gives them a better chance to win right now. You know, people love to kill Jimmy Garoppolo. If you went into that building, man to man on the offensive guys, every single one of them, I think, would say we're happy to have Jimmy Garoppolo playing. They wouldn't admit it publicly, but if you got it privately, they would say that.
Yeah, and the thing that I like about Jimmy G now within this offense, remember, he didn't do anything throughout preseason. Let's go back to minicamp, OTAs. Nothing during those times. Same can be said for preseason training camp. So now he's just starting to really get into football form, football shape. And we saw some real nice things from Jimmy G throwing the football. He did have a few misses here or there, but yet and still, you can tell he's starting to get into a rhythm. And then defensively, man, yes, Pete, I agree with you. The concerns for the O-linemen O-line unit for the Rams was something we all talked about leading into the season. But San Francisco just played bully football and just dominated. And the most intriguing thing in regards to the 49ers defense, their secondary is much improved. Their secondary has improved dramatically. And because of that, now this is one of the more talented defenses in the National Football League. And yes, they're the best team in their division right now. In the NFC West, the San Francisco 49ers clear shot the best team in the division.
DeMeco Ryans will be a head coach, and it might happen next year.
Matthew Stafford's got to stop throwing the ball to the other team. Leads the NFL in interceptions.
Well, he tied for the league lead last year. Let's not forget that.
Right. Came through in the postseason. 49er fans would say, yeah, if we make that interception in the NFC Championship game, it is a much, much different story. All right, so shake up in the top 10 for Pete Prisco, but not really at the top. Eagles still the number 1 team. Bills and Chiefs move up a little bit. Dolphins move down. But Vikings, Cowboys, and Niners, all newcomers to the top 10. On the other side, we got the biggest risers and the biggest fallers. Cincinnati starting to get it in gear. How high did the Giants rise? 3-1 start for the G-Men. Continuing on with Pete Prisco's power rankings, Chris Hassel, Pete Prisco, and Bryant McFadden here. Boy, the Ravens, they should be 4-0 right now. They might be your number 1 ranked team if they hold on to 3-score leads. Second time in 3 weeks, Pete, that they blow a 3-score lead and they're down to, 11 now?
Well, I hated the decision, John Harbaugh. Kick your field goal. I don't care.
Field goal.
You know, everybody says it's Buffalo, it's Buffalo, it's Buffalo. They're going to go down and get points. They had 20 points at that point. The conditions were terrible. It wasn't like they had 40. If it was a shootout, it was 45-41 or something. I get it. You know, 45-45 at that point, you go for it. But it was 40. It was 20-20. You take the points and you kick it. So they would have won that game if he had done that. I'm convinced of it. But their defense is atrocious. This is such an un-Ravens-like team right now, and Lamar Jackson's going to be asked to do so much more because they can't stop anybody. It's terrible to watch. They bust coverages all over the place. They can't tackle. It's just they don't have great pass rushers. It's a bad defense right now, and they better improve. Starting this week against the Bengals, they're going to be dropping down this list a little bit.
Look at this. I've never seen a Ravens defense this bad. I'm trying to think back to my time as a child, clearly not as an adult, being in college. I never remember a Ravens defense, as Pete mentioned, being this bad, and that's why they are, 2-2 right now. The 2 games they lost kind of solely been on their defense, and I agree with you. Harbaugh should have kicked the field goal. Go up, take the lead. Take the lead and put pressure on Josh Allen to, worst case scenario, settle for a field goal that could tie the ball game. So take the points is always a plus in doing so. But until they find a way to improve their defense, they will be in shootouts, and they will put more. That will put all the pressure on Lamar Jackson. Like you said, they have the Cincinnati Bengals this week. Remember the last time Cincy played against Baltimore, right? Remember Jamar Chase. Remember the day he had and Joe Burrow had. These guys know, based on the success from a year ago, Cincinnati offensively, they know they can score points on Baltimore. So there's no fear at all. So I wouldn't be surprised to see another shootout. You talk about Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson basically going point for point based on what we've seen from both sides.
And Cincinnati continuing their climb up. They're at number 13 after that 0-2 start. Have they solved some of those issues that got them off to that 0-2 start?
Well, they're not solved, but they're better. The offensive line has been better. That's one of the things. Joe Burrow still takes way too many shots. And you know, there was this narrative a couple weeks ago, Joe Burrow and this offense, they don't know how to handle cover 2. What do they do? Put that out of your mind. That offense will be fine, and BMAC mentioned it. This team has had success against the Ravens. I think they're going to put up points this week, and don't worry about Joe Burrow. Don't worry about Jamar Chase. Don't worry about T. Higgins. This past game will get going. I do worry about the play calling. I didn't like the play calling. I thought they were way too conservative. If I have those weapons at my disposal, I'm opening things up. I'm playing faster. I'm throwing the football around. I'm getting the ball into my playmakers' hands. Because Joe Mixon, for whatever reason, I know he's a little dinged up. He just doesn't look like he has the same pop as he did a year ago. So I'm spreading him out. I'm throwing the ball. And the concern is the offensive line. I get it.
Yeah, and the offensive line has improved over the last 2 weeks. That is a bright spot. I think they will always be that type of unit that will put their quarterback in uncomfortable situations, but just being able to prevent some of the sacks they've showcased in weeks past is an improvement. Joe Mixon, we did see we had a Joe Mixon sighting against the Miami Dolphins, and he doesn't seem to be the old Joe Mixon. I agree with you. I don't know if he's dealing with some type of injury, but the burst and the pop is not there. But he gave us some production last week against the Miami Dolphins. But this is a team offensively, I think they should never huddle. I think they're at their best when they're utilizing tempo. You talk about those three wide receivers, that's a matchup nightmare for almost any secondary. They Hurst involved it as well. So hopefully they can just utilize tempo and just put the football in Joe Burrow's hand and watch him create magic.
Biggest riser of the week, the New York Giants. They're 3-1, but is it a fraudulent 3-1? The schedule's been very easy.
Well, they also won at Tennessee. Let's not forget
Tennessee
about
looks
that.
better than they did earlier in the season.
Let's not forget about they won at Tennessee.
But they just beat the Bears, and they're their biggest riser.
I get it, but they're doing it the old-fashioned way. This is like from way back in the day. They have a quarterback who doesn't even throw for 100 yards, and they win the game. I mean, give me a break. But they lead the league in rushing. Saquon Barkley is back. Give him all the credit in the world for getting back to where he was in his pre-injury form. He's been outstanding, and they're playing good defense, and they're starting to get guys back on defense.
Sounds like you believe that this could be a playoff team.
No, I don't believe in it, but give Brian Dable credit. This team will fight all year long. They're not ready to compete for a playoff. You got to be able to throw the football. They can't throw it. He has all his weapons are hurt on the outside. Both quarterbacks are hurt, and yet they're, by the way, we're looking at this chart. Allie Sherman, 3-1 start, right? At one point in his career, the Giants crowd chanted "Goodbye, Allie" for about 2 hours during a game to get him out of there. So don't get, so enamored with this start. But he has this team playing good football.
And you mentioned the quarterbacks are hurt. Daniel Jones has the ankle. Tyrod Taylor the concussion. They're working out quarterbacks this week, so hopefully they get.
Well, they
somebody
play at London. They play the Packers at London, so it's a tough turnaround.
Matchup of 3-1 teams. BMAC 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time Sunday.
No question. I'm excited about the Giants. The thing I love about the Giants, Chris, I do agree with you. They had a favorable schedule, but think about this. In years past, they found ways to lose ball games. It didn't matter who they were playing against. Teams they were better than, personnel-wise, they found a way to lose. Now what we're seeing from the Giants, they're finding ways to win, and they're finding ways to beat teams they should beat. Like we know how bad the Bears are. But if this was last year, the Giants would have found a way to lose that ball game. So I think that is a positive in regards to the direction that franchise is going, along with the coaching staff, and the players seem like they believe in everything the coaches are telling them to do on both sides of the football. I have concerns in regards to the injuries at the quarterback position, because Green Bay Packers defensively, they've been up and down, but when they're in their bag, that's a very, very stout unit as well. So hopefully one of those quarterbacks, Taylor or Jones, is able to play and be comfortable enough to be productive. But yeah, Saquon Barkley has been, my goodness, I mean, whoa, he's been unbelievable. The offensive line has been unbelievable in regards to run blocking as well. So they're just putting pieces together to put win after a win. So I like what they're doing, because, like I said, this was last year. The Giants would have found a way to lose that ball game against Chicago.
And keep wearing those old school uniforms too. They look great in those.
Yes.
By the way,
no question.
Give the NFC East some credit. The top three teams are combined 10-2, and everybody laughed at that division before the season started. 10-2.
But you only have who in the playoffs when it's all said and done?
The Eagles.
That's it?
Maybe the Cowboys.
Oh,
wow. So
maybe the Cowboys.
So you're still laughing at the division if you think it's just a one.
I'm just not a believer in the Giants just yet. But give them credit for with their start. You are what you are, and they're 3-1, right?
Right. Well, let's talk about a bunch of teams that are 2-2 unexpectedly in a good way, and it's teams that at the very bottom of your power rankings, like the Atlanta Falcons, like the Seattle Seahawks, the New York Jets, and they're off to better than expected starts this season. Who's impressed you the most?
The Falcons. And I didn't think they had this in them. I'll be honest with you. I did not think this. And quite frankly, you look at their games, they could have won. They should have won in week 1. They blew a lead against the Saints. Were competitive, had the ball late against the Rams on the road. Beat Seattle at Seattle. This is a team that Arthur Smith has playing good, sound offensive football. They're hard to deal with offensively, much like the Eagles. They get creative with what Mariota does. And he didn't throw the ball much last week, but they get creative and they can run the ball. And on the other side of the ball, Grady Jarrett's been playing out of his mind. And he's the star of the defense. He's playing out. They're not great on defense, but they're going to be a tough out for every team they face this year because they are hard to prepare for from an offensive standpoint.
I agree with you. I'm surprised with what the Falcons have been able to do, but I'll give you a different team. What about Seattle? What about the Seahawks? That Detroit Lions team last week, I felt like on paper they were the better team. I felt like they would score points, they would get the necessary stops to be able to win that ball game. But I didn't see I didn't think about what potentially could happen if Seattle got into a rhythm. Geno Smith has really been surprising this year. He's been really good. He has exceeded the expectation. And now you got Rashad Penny, who has shown the ability to be a difference maker. The issue with him has been health. When he's healthy, he's one of the best playmakers at the running back position because he's a stocky guy, but he has speed, he has burst. He can turn a 5-yard run into a 50 or 60-yard run. So the way they're doing things offensively, it has really been entertaining. I have concerns defensively, but they're finding ways to win. So those two teams, in my opinion, I feel like they would be bottom dwellers in the National Football League this season. But so far, they have really surprised me.
If I told you, Pete, one of those teams is going to make the playoffs, which one would you say it is?
Atlanta.
Tied for first in the division.
Look at the division.
Yeah.
The Saints aren't any good right now. Mm-hmm. Carolina stinks. And Tampa Bay, they're going to get it going, but they'll be the winner of the division, and I think Atlanta could make it. Who knows? I mean, he's done a great job with that team. He really has.
No question. Fire in the belly. Feisty team. We talked about it before the season. Feisty team.
They're young. They're learning how to play football, and they don't know any better. I'm telling you, they're hard to prepare for offensively.
Let's get to the biggest faller of the week in BMAC. It is your precious Steelers who made the switch at quarterback midway through the game.
Yeah, they should have made this switch weeks ago, in my opinion. The offense has been stagnant. Even the Week 1 win against Cincinnati, the offense almost caused the Steelers to lose that ball game, and the defense was lights out. But they struggled because the offense has been stagnant. So let's see exactly what Kenny. He gets a full week of prep as the number one guy working with the ones. So I think this was a necessary move, and I'm happy to see them do it. And hopefully he can kind of energize the entire team, not just the offense.
They should have started the season with Pickett as the starter. I don't think there's any question about that. And everybody always says, well, what about the poor kid's psyche if the offensive line doesn't hold up? And what? Well, if the psyche is ruined after 5 games or 6 games, you drafted the wrong kid. And this is the right kid. He has that attitude. You can see it on the field. You can sense it when you talk to him. You know I love guys that have fire in the belly. This guy has fire in the belly, and he can make all the throws and all that talk about the small hands. He can rip the ball too. Don't worry about him. The Steelers have their long-term answer at quarterback.
The problem is, Pete, the schedule. I mean, it's brutal beginning with the Bills.
You're not going to expect them to win games this year. You're going to expect them to get better week in and week out. They're not winning games this year. It's not a good team. But at least he'll get the ball to the playmakers. They weren't getting the ball to the playmakers.
The playmaker was himself. 2 touchdown runs in that game. 3 interceptions, but really you can't pin.
The last one was a late
Even the first
one.
Yeah. First one probably should have been caught as well. All right, Pete, of all the teams, which team would you say has the most to gain this week in your rankings?
Well, that's a good question. Who has the most to gain this week in the
That's a Noah Special, our producer.
Well, the Atlanta Falcons do.
The bottom here.
The Atlanta Falcons
have the most to gain.
Think about that.
The Bucs.
Yeah, if they win that game, they're in first place by themselves, and they would move up these rankings. Go win that game, and then we'll be believers in the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, the Giants are in the same boat, kind of, aren't they? Giants and Falcons probably. If the Giants beat the Packers,
yeah.
I don't think they're going to. I don't think Atlanta's going to win either, but both teams have a lot to gain.
Yeah, I like those 2 selections from Pete, but I think he's wrong. I think the team with the most to gain this weekend is the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys, currently 3-1.
At the Rams, right?
They're right there on the cusp of the Philadelphia Eagles in the division. They've been winning ball games with their backup quarterback. If they can go out to L.A., a team that will probably be desperate to try to get back into the win column on the road against that defense, against Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, if they find a way to win with their backup quarterback, wow, they will jump in Pete's rankings next week. And then get this, that following upcoming Sunday, they have a Sunday night matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles. So me personally seeing what's all at stake and seeing how they've been able to win ball games with their backup quarterback and outstanding defensive play, I think they would jump up the charts in Pete Prisco's power rankings next week if they go out to La La Land and take care of business.
By beating a team they're already ahead of?
No. It's not just about
and they don't have much. They don't have much room to go up.
Hold on, Pete. In the beginning of the year, Super Bowl favorites out of the NFC. If you were to ask 10 people, all 10, if they had to give you 3 teams out of the NFC to get to the Super Bowl, all 3 people would say the Rams. Right or wrong?
Are we in the beginning of the year?
You even said it.
Are we in October already? Are we in October?
We're in October, but you still believe the Rams
they don't have the most to gain
to rectify their situation.
Okay, let's just say Dallas beats the Rams and Atlanta beats the Bucks. Who deserves to go up higher and more spots in the rankings next week?
I think because the Falcons are already in the mid to late 20s, so I think they would go up higher based on where they already located
the most to gain,
right?
They're the most to gain.
But I'm saying, but as far as not just in your power rankings, I'm talking about the reality side.
B-Mac's talking real life here, not just power rankings.
I'm talking real life.
If the Falcons are in first place after 5 games, everybody thought they were dreadful. They would be in first place. B-Mac, they would be in first place. Think about that.
Oh, but I hear that, but let's keep it real. The NFC South has been bad. Everyone thought the Saints would be a playoff caliber team. You even picked the Saints to finish first in the division.
He had a 6th overall to start the season.
I did.
So the entire NFC South has been disappointing. And
I get
that's
it.
why the window of
opportunity
is there for
If you
Atlanta.
beat the Bucks, who everybody's picking to win that division, everybody but me, then they're going to be the biggest risers. That would be a great win for the Falcons.
But
the Rams are reeling right now. The Rams aren't a good team right now.
I didn't disagree with your selection. I said you had good selections, but I think the team with the most to gain would be they have a backup quarterback.
B-Mac, this isn't 5 weeks ago. This is now. I mean,
the Rams are still a playoff. The Rams still going to the playoffs, Pete. What are you talking about? They're still going to get to the playoffs.
We'll see. Are they? We'll see.
I think so.
All
right. Pete Prisco's power rankings. If the Cowboys do win, Pete's going to spite you, B-Mac, and not even move them up at all because we know he has full control of the power.
They're not moving ahead of the Rams. They're already there.
All right, B-Mac, thanks, man. Hey, what's coming up on All Things Covered?
Oh, man, All Things Covered. You didn't check out our most recent episode. We had the future Hall of Famer Drew Brees on, talking about some of the things he's doing off the football field. And he also had some insight if Sean Payton was to return to the National Football League. Would he entertain a call from Sean Payton? I can't tell you what he said. You got to go ahead and check it out for yourself.
All right. Find it wherever you like to get your audio. All Things Covered podcast.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.